Good afternoon, guys, and thanks for joining us. This is going to be episode 10 of Third Thursday Training. To help me today, I've got Braden, who's our trade specialist, and my name is Josh. Today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be showcasing quite a big range of timber flooring adhesive, and we're going to be comparing various different things about them, because one thing that we found in the flooring industry is there's not one glue that's the best. Every glue has its own benefits. Some are easier to trowel, some are harder to trowel, which means that people have a preference between the two. Some dry faster, some are slower drying. So there's not going to be one glue that suits all jobs and all customers or all installers. Each glue tends to have a benefit based on what you're after and whether you want to do a job faster or slower. So what we're going to give you is the detailed differences between a lot of them. It's going to be an unbiased one because, again, there's no glue that's the best one out there. To keep it simple and even across the board, we're going to use the same trowel across each adhesive. Each adhesive, however, does have a recommended trowel that they recommend to use, being that it might be a difference in the size of the notches or how many notches. But to keep the test consistent, we're going to use the same one across the board. And for those of you that are at home, you won't be able to see or feel it. So we're going to try and give you an out of 10 rating on how strong the smell might be, how easy it might be to trowel, and then later on we're going to also show you how strong some of these adhesives are, because we've done a test yesterday where we actually glued down some boards to some raw concrete, and we're going to try today and pull them up and see how strong they are in a 24-hour period. So to kick off, I'll start off down this end and then we'll work our way through. Alright, so to start things off, the first one we're going to be going through today is a product from Sika. This is a product called Sika Bond 151. Now this particular product is available in drums and also in a 600ml sausage. The drums are 17 kilos in size, and we'll see what's inside as Braden opens it shortly. Generally with this type of product you get about a 12-month shelf life out of it, so you shouldn't be too concerned if this stuff's going to go off if you've bought a bit too many of them. This particular product, if you want to start opening it up, Braden, as we go through, this particular product generally has a foot traffic time of about 8 hours. So what we mean by foot traffic is after about 8 hours, it'd be safe to walk on top of the timber floor after that. Anything prior to that, and it may start to move the floor around a bit too much. And you can see by the packaging, this is to stop the moisture from getting into the actual product. One other thing that we consider when we talk about adhesives is the skin time, and what that means is how long can we leave this product open like this, or how long can we leave it troweled on the floor before it starts to skin over. And at the point that it's skinned over, you'd have to either remove that skin or start again and apply fresh adhesive. So again, this particular one here, we generally have an open time or a skin time of around about 40 minutes. So you can start to gauge how far in advance you can trowel ahead while you're installing the floor. Another feature with this particular adhesive is when fully troweled and provided you fully cover the floor, they do give you a warranty on a moisture barrier as well. So that will save you the cost and the time of putting down a separate moisture barrier and then putting adhesive over the top. But as we'll see throughout as we go on, if you have a proper or an actual moisture issue already present, then it would definitely be recommended to use an independent moisture barrier and then use the adhesive on top. The moisture barriers or the adhesives that have moisture barriers included tend to give you a moisture barrier up to a certain level. So if you've got a serious moisture issue, these won't be enough to cover. You would have to use a separate one. But on jobs where it's a bit of a maybe on whether I'd need one or not, most cases you're going to get away with using a product that has a built-in moisture barrier. So Braden will start to open this up and start to trowel some out so we can see what it's like.
Okay, so straight away we'll open the drum up. So 1 being the worst, 10 being the best for smell. Okay, so we're just testing to see whether the solvents or whatever the smell, if it's really strong or not. So I've opened the drum up. It's not very, very smelly, but I can smell it. It's probably, I would say out of 10, probably going to say a 7. Okay, so it's still not very smelly compared to some of the floor coatings and stuff that you might be dealing with.
And also too, the reason we'll find that this particular adhesive has less of a smell than other ones is the actual makeup of this product is it's a solvent-free silane modified adhesive. So being solvent-free, it tends to have less odors, which for some people, the odors can give them a headache. It also can be bad for your health as well, especially when you're down close troweling over the top. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to trowel it out, and then Braden's going to give us a bit of a reference as to how easy it trowels overall. Some being thicker, some being a bit easier to trowel overall. So the trowel we're going to be using for this particular test is, it is a Sika trowel, but it is a 6mm trowel. Again, like I said, it's important to find out what the exact trowel recommendation is for each particular adhesive that you use. As I said before, we're going to use a 6mm trowel so that it's consistent across the test. But again, make sure you find the exact one that you should use for the recommended adhesive.
Okay, so trowelability.
So 1 being near impossible to trowel and 10 being very easy. How are we sort of saying
so we'll
this?
probably rate this one. It's probably around a 6 for trowelability. It's quite easy. The trowel runs through it nice and smoothly. We'll rate that one a 6.
Again, something else to point out with this particular one, and this is one of the only ones like this, is if you were to use this and wanting it to be a moisture barrier, you have to make sure that you've troweled it as Braden's troweled it now, where you've actually got a full skin over the floor. So you can't push the trowel right down and scrape all the excess glue off. You have to make sure you leave a film over the entire top of it. I'm going to show you now the idea, and if you wanted to zoom in close, you can see now with the trowel what it does is it leaves what we refer to as a peak. So one of the other things that we're going to consider today is how well it peaks, but more so how much it stays at a peak. A lot of them tend to slump down over time, whereas this, you can see the peaks are sitting up. You'll see on some other adhesives that some of the other ones actually sit up a lot more, which tends to give you a better adhesion overall. I'm going to show you now the effects of what we're talking about. So the idea of the peaks is when you're putting on, so pretending this is a piece of timber, when you're putting this on the floor, you can see that once you press down on the boards, you almost get a complete coverage of adhesion the whole way through. And again, then just for the sake of it, we've got a timber block and we'll glue that down. So you can imagine underneath this, you're getting a full cover. Right, so the next adhesive that we're going to go through and demonstrate today is Zeromono. Now this is a relatively new adhesive to the Australian market, so we're quite excited to see how this is going to perform overall. Again, this is an MS, silane modified adhesive, so again, solvent free, minimal, you should be minimal smell with this particular one, and minimal VOCs, so much better for your health overall. As you can see, they come in a 12 kilo drum. Again, we've got a 12-month shelf life. The skin time on this tends to be a little bit longer than the one that we just had before. You generally get around about a 1 hour time frame on this while this is skinned off. So you can generally trowel quite far ahead, probably even sit down and have a little bit of lunch and then get back to it and you'd be fine. It also means you're less likely to waste as much of the drum if you were to close it back up and leave it overnight. But as we see when we open these ones, if you want to open that now, these ones are a little bit different in the way that they're packaged. So this particular one has a different type of seal on it where you can see that this is something that you'll be able to put back in the drum after its use, and being that it's fairly airtight, it's going to minimize the amount that will skin over, which means you minimize the amount that you're going to waste overall.
As we can see there, we've literally wasted probably a couple of mil, which is not very much compared to some of the other seals that you'll get on other brands. You may waste up to 5 to 10.
Move that back so there's some space.
Okay, so smell for this one. Okay, probably rate this around a 3. I really can't smell it at all. It's a low VOC, so it's not going to hurt you. Obviously, it's got some odor, like everything does, but yeah, the smell is not. It's very minimal.
In terms of pricing, we're going to try and give you an idea on price. We're not going to tell you exact prices, but we're going to give you an idea on how they price versus other particular ones. This particular adhesive, based on the size and the pricing, it's around about the middle of the field in terms of its pricing, so quite good value for this particular product. In terms of our cleanup as well, something that we'll discuss, majority of these adhesives that we've got here today are cleaned up whilst wet with either a metho or a solvent for some of the stronger adhesives. Unfortunately, if the glue dries, it does tend to get a little bit harder to remove, so you want to make sure that you clean it off while it's wet. And how are we looking for trailability on that one?
Trailability for this one. So probably rate this out of 10 for trailability. Probably say it's about a 6. It's quite easy to trail. Holds the peaks nicely. Yeah.
Again, we also don't want it to be too easy, because if it is too easy to trail, it tends to mean it might be too watery as such. These glues don't have water in them, but that's just the best way we can explain it, because if it's a bit too runny, you'll tend to find that the peaks that we're referring to, and Braden's given us a nice peak now on that run, would slump very quickly. So we don't want them to be too easy to trail. And again, I'll glue down a particular block. Best if it was the right way up. I'll glue that down. Now again, as I was saying before, we tend to have quite a good adjustment with this particular product. Generally on this particular product, you could adjust this for up to about 2 hours afterwards. So in other words, if you put the board down and you might have noticed you've got a slight mistake, for about a 2 hour period, you'll be able to at least move this around in small amounts. Of course, it'll get harder and harder as time goes on, but it'll allow you to make small adjustments. Because again, these are all flexible adhesives and they should give you that little bit of flexibility. But in this case, you can also move it slightly if you needed to adjust anything on the floor. All right, brings us to our next one, which is another adhesive from Sika. This is one that's been around for a very, very long time. And believe it or not, this is actually an adhesive that still has solvent in the adhesive. It is a solvent-based polyurethane, so Braden will probably tell us shortly once he starts opening up that the smell of this is generally a little bit stronger. Still a very, very strong adhesive. If you want to open that up, Braden, and go for it. Again, this one's in a 16 kilo drum, which we don't have here today, but it also then comes in a 600 ml sausage. Generally, your open or skin time on this is quite a good one as well, at around about the 90 minutes overall of skin time. So again, you've got a bit of a play with it to move it around and trowel quite far ahead. Now generally with most of these products, they are going to vary slightly, but a majority of these, depending on the size of the drums, we're going to get around about, in a fully trowel application, we're going to get around about anywhere between 10 to sometimes as much as 20 square meters out of each drum. Some of the drums you'll see as we go on are a bit bigger than the other ones.
Okay, so as far as smell, we can smell it. It's quite strong. Okay, so we'll probably say out of 10 that this is about a 2. Okay, so it is quite strong. Trailability, we're going to say that it's a 2. So it's quite hard to work with as it's thicker, but it's still not impossible. It still is workable, you know. It's just a lot thicker than some of our other adhesives we have here.
So again, just to clarify as well, being a 2, that's not necessarily saying that it's bad. It's just more so stipulating that it is a thicker adhesive, a little bit harder to work with. But what that would mean on the other end of the scale is that generally the grab of this particular one might be a little bit better than others. So it might grab a little bit quicker. But again, that might not be suitable for some people, because if it grabs too quick for some people, it means you can't make any mistakes and you can't go back and make any adjustments. So again, there's a bit different preferences of what people would like.
As you can see, the peaks there, they're holding quite nicely, like they're not slumping at all, probably because it is a thicker glue.
And then again, if we give you the same demonstration with this clear bit of Perspex, you can see that once we start to give it some pressure, you can see you get a very good coverage overall at the adhesive, and we would have an impossible chance of getting most of these off once this is finished. So next up, we're going to be looking at a product from a company called Soudal. This is an adhesive that they manufacture that's a solvent-free polymer, and it's called SMX-30P. Again, similar to the first adhesive, this is one of the rare ones on the market that actually provides a moisture barrier at the same time. These guys make a pretty high-end adhesive. Price-wise, it tends to be on that sort of medium to higher end. However, the size of the drum is a little bit bigger, And you'll see shortly when Braden opens this up that the packaging of this particular product is a lot better than other ones, in a sense that it comes in, if you want to open that up so they can see now, it actually comes in 3 6-kilo sacks. So here's one of the sacks that we opened up yesterday to do our other test. But what it means is you get 3 separate sacks overall. So you tend to, again, have a little bit less wastage because you're only going to be using 1 sack at a time. We'll clear that out of the way so we can trowel some of this out. One thing though with this particular adhesive is, before you do open one of these bags, you need to sort of give this a little bit of a massage just to sort of mix this product through a little bit. Sometimes you get some sort of thicker bits as well, so you want to mix it through to get some consistency. I'll leave that for Braden to trowel some out.
Smell. Okay, so smell, it's not really that bad. It has an odor. However, it's not a solvent smell, obviously, because it's solvent free. Out of 10, probably going to rate this one about a 7. Okay, so it's quite good. We'll try trowelability now. Again, we want to make sure that we've got no holes in this adhesive, because if it is a moisture barrier, obviously a hole is going to let water through the moisture.
And again, with this particular one, we've got around about a 40 minutes of open or skin time. One thing that is unique to this particular product is it does tend to dry a lot faster than other adhesives, which again can be a positive for some, but also a negative for others. This is one of the only products where they will allow you to sand the floor after 12 hours. A lot of the products tend to be sort of 24 hours, so some even 3 days before you would sand and polish. This is one of the rare ones where you can actually sand and polish after only 12 hours. But again, some guys find that to be not as good because it means that they have less chance to make any mistakes, essentially, because it does grab a lot faster and it goes off a lot faster, to the point where if we were to glue this particular one down, I'll use the block first. So once that's to be pressed down into the floor, we would actually only have, in this case, around the 15 minutes of adjustment time. So you've got to be pretty set, whereas a lot of these other ones that we were looking at sort of give you more of that 30-40 minutes. This particular one tends to grab a lot quicker, which some people like, some people won't, but it would mean that after about 10-15 minutes, that's going to be pretty much rock solid and you wouldn't be able to move it. Again, to do the other demonstration with the Perspex, we put that down on top, you can see, again, as you would expect with this one being that it's supposed to be a fully cover, you get a nice even coverage from top to bottom, meaning that if there was a small moisture issue, it's going to be unlikely, still possible if it's really, really severe, but it's unlikely to get through the adhesive and into the actual timber as well.
Trowelability, probably going to rate that one there. It was quite easy to work with. Let's rate that, say 7 for trowelability. It's quite easy to work with.
Which is quite unique, considering that generally the adhesives that would dry a bit quicker or be a little bit thicker, they tend to be harder to trowel, whereas somehow they've managed to make this easy to trowel but also thicker so that it's got that strength to dry and grab a lot faster. So the next one we'll move on to now is our Bostik Ultraset. Again, we've got a solvent-free polyurethane adhesive. It is available in the big drums that you see here, 16-kilo drum, and also a 600ml sausage. Generally, again, we've got about another 12 months of shelf life on this one. So again, a good lifespan overall. This particular one actually has probably one of the longest skin times out of any of the other products. Let me go back so you can get stuck into that. But generally we find with the Bostik, we generally have close to about a 4-hour skin time on this. So you get quite a long time as far as skin and moving the product around. But again, that means it dries slower.
Quite a good seal on this drum as well. Okay, so we've just got the foil. Smell, because it is a solvent free, not much smell at all. Again, probably going to rate this one about a 6 for smell. It's not that bad at all, solvent free. We'll try the trowelability now. Okay, trailability. So this one, let's rate this a 5. It's quite easy to trail. Is slightly thicker, a little bit harder to trail, but still quite workable.
And again, we'll go down our block over the top. You can actually see just by a quick glance that the peaks on this they don't sit as high as they would with other products. You can see they've probably already slumped slightly overall. But again, if you sort of get right down in line with the shot, you'll see that you still get very good coverage of the adhesive overall. All right, so the next one we're going to be showing you today is the Monosil P. Now, this is another relatively new adhesive to the Australian market. This is the same manufacturer as the Zeromono, a company called Vermeister. I hope I said that right. This is a little bit cheaper than the Zeromono, but one difference is with this one is, well, the Zeromono is a bit stronger, or quite a bit stronger than the Monosil, and they generally don't recommend that this would be used with a solid timber floor. Better off for things like engineered and other various timbers, but not necessarily solid timber. Solid timber tends to be a little bit too strong maybe for something like this. Again, it's an MS silane modified, so we should find that there'll be minimal smell and very, very low VOCs overall. So I'll get Braden to open that up and get stuck into that particular one. Now we have the same thing again. We've got an open time of around about the 1 hour or skin time. But again, this one has, well, first of all, this one has the different packaging like we saw earlier, which again is going to minimize the amount of product that you lose, and will also maximize the amount of product you can save if you were to seal this drum back up again. We're going to have quite a long adjustment time with this one, a bit longer than other ones. Generally, you've got around about a 2-hour adjustment, which is nice and friendly for most flooring guys. Allows them to move the product around a little bit when they need to. One thing, however, with this one is we do tend to have a slightly longer sanding time with this one of about 2 days. In saying that, however, the only time you're going to normally be sanding a product would be when it's a solid timber floor. And this particular one is generally not used for solid timber, so the sanding time on that is probably not a huge consideration, because it's not often you'll be sanding a product that this is going to be adhering to.
Smell, this is actually quite minimal. I can barely smell it at all, to be honest. So I'm going to rate this one a 9.
About a 9, so one of our lowest smelling ones at this stage, hey?
Correct, yeah. I can barely smell that. I don't know. Trailability, it's quite good to trail. Rate this one a 7.
Quite easy?
Quite easy to trail.
Very good. And then again, we'll stick down our products just to show you. Again, quite a good coverage overall. And then again, if we were to use the timber, and we'll come back and we'll show you how strong these are sort of setting once we've done all these as well, just giving you a bit of an idea of how they are setting in the short space of time that we have. Rightio, the next one we're going to try is one of the first adhesives that we have here from Mapei, or Mapei. It's an Italian company. This is probably their flagship product that's been around for quite some time. There is a slightly different one that they've brought out recently, or in the last couple of years. This is a product called P990. Again, it's a solvent-free polyurethane. These are available in a 15 kilo drum or in a 600 ml sausage. We'll also see once Braden starts opening this up, if you want to open it up now, that this product, again, is packaged different to the other ones. In a sense that the contents of it is actually in one big giant sack. So the whole thing is sitting independent from the drum. So it tends to mean that you tend to get a longer lifespan out of it. It does, however, mean that if you were to open up this sack and pour it into the drum, or to tip it and pour it out of the sack, generally whatever's left is probably not going to last all that long before it starts to skin over. So you've got to be a little bit more mindful. That's why guys tend to use some sausages as well in their jobs, so they can sort of balance the two of them. So we'll get stuck into this one and start trailing some of this out. Again, this one doesn't have a moisture barrier like a couple of the other ones did. And we do get a longer skin time on this particular product, generally up around the 2 hours of skin time, but you get close to 3 hours of adjustment time on this. So this is definitely a slower drying adhesive, especially when it comes to sanding, because generally when it comes to sanding, they generally recommend that you allow about 3 days before you sand and polish any timber floor over this particular product. In saying that, however, when it comes to sanding and polishing a timber floor, a raw timber floor, there's always a time frame that you should allow for what they call acclimatization, which generally would be longer than 3 days. So it wouldn't be necessary that it would, well, this wouldn't necessarily, I should say, interrupt with your flow of timing, because you should never be installing a timber floor and sanding it the next day anyway.
Okay, so straight away, trailability here, quite easy. This is on more of the runnier side as far as trailability goes. Still holds its peaks really, really well. As far as smell, again, not a lot of smell. Probably going to rate this one out of 10. We'll rate it a 7.
Glue that down so they can see. It's straight away, even I can just see, even as Braden's mentioned, the peaking on this is quite a lot higher. We'll see as time goes on how much those peaks stay where they are. Let's see how much they do slump overall. Alright, so the next adhesive we're going to show you today is another product by Soudal. This is their non-moisture barrier version of what we were looking at before. So we looked at the SMX-30P, which is their moisture barrier version. This is the SMX-20, so a bit lower in the cost, but there's no moisture barrier. So otherwise it'll tend to be a bit of an overkill if you don't actually need a moisture barrier. So we'll start with this one now, if you want to start trailing that one out, Braden. So this does come in an 18 kilo drum, similar to the SMX-30, where it has the 3 6 kilo sacks inside, but it also does come in a 600mm sausage. You generally get around about a 30-minute of skin time, or adjustment time I should say, with this one, and around about a 45-minute skin time. So again, like the SMX-30, a quicker drying time with this particular one, a bit of less time that you can have to sort of move around and make adjustments overall. And again, another product where they give you a relatively short sanding time of 24 hours.
Smell, not much smell at all. So I'll rate this one an 8. So quite good. Trailability, again, really, really easy to use. So we'll rate this one an 8 as well. It's holding its peaks quite well.
That's probably one of the higher peaking ones,
say,
out of all of them. Which generally means, from the sake of adhesion, you're generally going to get a pretty good bite on the floor, which should help it keep it stable and hopefully keep it down on the floor. The next adhesive we're going to do today is your Mapei Ultrabond S995K. Now again, this is another adhesive from the guys at Mapei, solvent-free, silylate, polyurethane based adhesive. So again, it should be low toxins, minimal smells. Comes in a 15 kilo drum, and it's going to be packaged very similar. Now this particular one actually has just a seal over the top. I don't think this one comes in a sack unless I'm wrong. Yeah, this one just comes with a seal over the top of it. But in terms of what's different about this one and the 990, this one actually is quite a bit stronger. Very similar in price, but quite a bit stronger in its overall strength.
The other thing to point out on this adhesive versus the P990, and this comes down to personal preference, is this one will go off a little bit quicker than what the P990 will. So depending on, you know, whether you want it to go off a little bit quicker, or you want that workable time, depending on what type of job you've got. Already I can feel that this is a little bit thicker than the 990. However, it's still quite easy to work with. Trailability here, we'll rate this one an 8. It's an 8 for trailability there. Smell, got a slight smell to it, nothing much at all. It's certainly not going to give you a headache, so we rate this one, let's go an 8. Okay, so it's quite good.
Again, with this particular one, we tend to get a bit longer in your adjustment time. You've got around about 2 hours of adjustment. Like we said earlier with the other Mapei products, they're generally a bit slower drying, so a little bit more friendly when it comes to being able to move and make adjustments as time goes on. Alrighty, the last adhesive we're going to go through, or the last timber adhesive, we've got one more to show you as well, but the last timber adhesive we're going to go through is the Bona R848T. Now this is a silane-based, solvent-free polymer adhesive. Again, this is another adhesive where if you're fully troweling this, you are going to get a degree, you have to say it's a degree of a moisture barrier, again like the other ones, where you're going to get some of a moisture protection against any moisture that's coming up from underneath to help protect the timber. It also means it can get a little bit more, it can be a little bit more moist scenario before the glue or adhesive breaks down. Most adhesives, once they come in contact with it with water, tend to break down and lose a lot of their strength overall. I'll leave that to you to open that one up. And we should find with this one it'll be a lot less smell as well, like a lot of the other ones.
So as we can see, it's a foil seal. Again, like some of the other ones have. So just pull some out now. Smell does have a slight smell to it, nothing toxic, that's for sure. We'll rate this one as a 6 for smell. Try trowelability. It's quite a thicker adhesive, so I'm going to say for trowelability this one's a 5. Holds its peaks quite well. Put some timber. Yeah. It's good peaks there, that's good.
A couple other things we want to go through before we start to check some of the immediate strength of some of these products is, as I mentioned before, a lot of the cleanup with these products is generally metho or thinners or a solvent. Again, if you're going to be cleaning it off the surface though of an actual timber floor, you need to make sure that particular product is going to be suitable. The last thing you want to do is to damage the timber floor that you're removing the adhesive from. In saying that, nearly every manufacturer of an adhesive also makes a range of wipes. Now these are wipes that have been approved to be safe for you, safe for the products that you're going to be using, and they tend to help take the adhesive off your hands, off your tools, off the floors, off your machinery and various different things. So generally it's always handy to make sure you have different things like this on board. The last thing you want is to get adhesive on something that you don't want to in someone's house and cause you a very expensive repair bill, because as you'll see, a lot of these glues, once they're stuck down, they don't really come off, especially once they're dry. Now one more adhesive that we're going to show you today, and it's showing you because it's an adhesive, it's not necessarily for timber floors as such, but it's a particular product that Mapei make, and it's called Ultrabond Eco V4SP. Now this is actually a contact adhesive, so this particular adhesive is not used for any timber floors at all. It's actually used for vinyls, but also a lot of guys these days are using this for as an adhesive, I should say, for acoustic underlays. This is a very good product to stick acoustic underlays down, very low cost, and generally a drum of this size, you're going to get anywhere between, well, I think it's anywhere between 50 square meters and more out of a single drum. If you trowel it on very thin with a flat trowel, and this grabs almost immediately. So that's just another glue that we wanted to highlight from our friends at Mapei.
Very easy trowelability as well. It's very simple and easy to put on.
Very good. So we won't show you today how it actually works, but it is very easy. It's just important for you to know there are particular adhesives for vinyls and acoustics, so make sure you don't use an expensive one that wouldn't be necessary. The next thing we're going to do is we're just going to go through each one again just briefly. Just watch the glue across the edge here so we don't lean on that. Just briefly from start to finish again. It's been probably since we started and gone to one end to the other, it's been probably 20 minutes or so. So this is going to give us a bit of an idea on the initial grab that each product has. So if you come in close with the camera on each one, this is our first one, the Sika 151. You can see that I have to give that a pretty good push for that to move. Well, that's not going to move at all. So you can see that this is obviously going to go off relatively quick. one thing to also point out, in all the drying times that we've been referring to today, they also vary depending on the amount of glue you use and also the particular climate that you're going to be installing the floor in. And what I mean by that is generally, because these are moisture cured adhesives, nearly all of these, when it's really hot and humid like today, as you can see we're sweating a little bit, it means that these adhesives are going to go off a little bit quicker than they would if you were to do it, say, in maybe Melbourne, where it's nice and where sometimes it can be quite cold and have a slower drying time. So they are a recommended drying time or skin time, but they do definitely vary depending on the circumstance that you're laying in. And as you can see, this one obviously has gone off quite quickly. We'll take it to the next one, to our Zeromono. And you can see that, as we were talking about originally, you've got a lot longer adjustment time with this. So whilst this is still grabbing and it's going to be very hard to take out, you can still move this product around a little bit if you needed to make any small adjustments. We'll move on now to our T-55J, our only solvent adhesive that we have here this morning. And again, you still get, even though this was one of our thicker and harder, slightly harder ones to trowel, you still get that little bit of play that you don't get necessarily with some of the other ones. So you can still make some slight adjustments. You could even probably peel it up if you really had to and you made a big mistake. Next, we've got the SMX-30, and as we would expect, this one's tend to be quite a little bit firmer than all the other ones. This one does have a shorter drying time, but you can still make adjustments if needed. Next one we'll move on to is the Bostik Ultraset in the solvent-free. Now, as expected, this one did have quite a slow drying time, which means we've got a lot of play with it, and it is going to dry a lot slower than other ones, which again is a benefit for some people. For some other people, they may not necessarily like being able to do that type of thing. It also means you've got to be quite careful when it comes to this, because if someone's to walk across the floor, you're probably at risk that they're going to move the floor around out from the original spot you want it to be. Next, we're going to try the Monosil P, and again, as we expected, like we mentioned earlier, you get quite a good adjustment time on this particular one. So you can be a little bit, you've got a little bit more time when it comes to playing around with it and moving around. But as you'll see very soon, whilst it moves quite a bit, this stuff, when it's dry, is extremely strong. We're going to see that shortly when we do a demonstration of pulling some other boards up. Next, we've got the 990, and again, this one had a slower drying time, so as expected, very easy to move around the floor. Quite a good adjustment time overall, and that, again, you've got to be mindful if you start walking across the floor that it's going to possibly move. You can see that it doesn't take too much to be able to move this particular one around. In the Soudal SMX-20 now for the next one. This one, being a polymer adhesive again, hasn't really set all that hard. This one, to be fair, has probably had the less amount of times to set, but you can still see good adhesion overall. It's going to take a bit to actually pull up, but you can still make adjustments where necessary. Next one is your Mapei S995, and as expected, this one had one of the slower drying times. So again, as expected, we can move this around quite a bit. I know a lot of guys tend to like this one for things like parquetry, because they can move and make adjustments to their pattern as they go if they slightly go out of whack. So again, can be quite friendly, but also if you need it to dry fast, it's probably not the right one for you. Brings us to the last one for this, which is the Bona R848T, and not as much adjustment as other ones, but still workable after about a 20-minute time. And if I was also to stick my finger in there, you'll notice that a lot of these haven't necessarily skinned over just yet. So if we were to be installing a floor, we could probably have gone away, come back and stick something else down on the floor. All right, so below us here on the floor is each of the adhesives that we've just demonstrated for you. But what we've done is yesterday, so approximately 24 hours ago, we've glued down each product, or we've used each product, and we've glued it to the same concrete as each other, so it's nice and fair. And again, we haven't cleaned it or anything like that, so this is a really good test, because in most cases you would make sure the surface is nice and clean and there's no dust or dirt or anything. And to be honest, we've just sort of glued these straight down just to see what's going to happen. To be honest, we don't really know what's going to happen other than the fact that we know it's going to be hard to get a lot of these up, but what we're going to find out is how strong these adhesives are within a 24-hour period, and I think we're going to have a bit of fun doing this. So we'll kick it off with the first one, which is the Sika 151. Alright.
Very
We might move on to the next one because that's sort of proving our point, and I'll just show you a couple of things as well that I've just noticed here as well, is that whilst this is definitely not a flat subfloor, you can see we've still got a very good coverage on the block, and this stuff has been so strong that it's actually even taken, as you can see here, this is a little bit of the concrete that it's actually pulled up with it. So you could almost say that this particular first one is in some cases stronger than the concrete, and it's actually the glue that's in some ways it's just ripping off the actual floor. The glue's not separating from itself. Move on to the second one, our T-55J. I bet this is going to be even harder. I think we did bend the bar.
It's bending.
So again, we've had to break the block to get this up, and this is only within 24 hours. And I think we actually, did we get any rain last night? No, didn't rain last night, did it? But we did actually have a bit of water leaking out of an aircon drain here as well. So you can still see we got still some very good strength. We didn't even get adhesion on the entire block, but again, this is very, very strong. I might actually just try and see if I can get this other one up and see how we go here. Definitely very strong. We're actually bending the steel here now. You can see this bar. It's actually bending. So we're actually definitely getting something nice and strong. Next one we'll try will be the Mapei P990. This might actually be a little bit easy because we've had some that's hanging over the edge that doesn't have any adhesive on it. So I wouldn't say it was easy to pull up. It was probably just because we had the excess. But as you can see here, this has still managed to adhere quite well overall, but still very, very strong. We've got to use quite a lot of force. Next one, the SMX-30P. Again, this is probably going to come a little bit easier because we've got some area here that we can bite to that hasn't been adhered down. But again, you're going to see, yeah. Again, nice and strong. It's hard to actually tell, but there is actually a little bit of concrete that's actually come away with this one as well. So again, very, very strong overall. We go to Soudal's sister, the SMX-20.
Yep,
Sounds like. Yep. So again, the most important thing that you can see here is that the glue is not actually breaking away from the timber itself. It's actually the glue itself, in this case, that's snapping overall. So like we would expect, it's not as strong as the SMX-30, but still very strong. And you can see we've even left a bit of the timber on the floor. We're going to have a hell of a time cleaning all of this up. So next we've got the Bostik Ultraset in the solvent free. And because we've got a bit that's hanging off the edge, might be a bit easier. That one actually probably came up a little bit easier than the other ones. In this case, you can see it's actually come off the boards a little bit. So still quite strong. This one did have a slightly slower drying time. So I guess if we were to give this the full curing time, because this is still a little bit rubbery, this is probably dried a bit harder. Again, just showing you that it is, see, it's actually still a fraction wet or uncured. So you can see that this would take a little bit longer to dry. Same with the Mapei as well that we did just earlier, where it came up a little bit easier. And again, that would be related to the slower drying time or slower curing time that product actually has. So we're getting pretty good consistency with what each company claims it should be doing. Next we've got the Bona R848. I might take this other one up just to see if that was because of the level. So again, being that this is a longer drying time, you could see that the Bona adhesive, you definitely have to give a little bit longer for it to grab. Because I know that I know we've used this quite a lot, and if we were to leave this down for the full curing time, this would definitely be a lot harder to take up. But most importantly, again, the glue hasn't broken in this case, it's actually ripped off the concrete. So it's not the glue failing itself, it just hasn't cured completely, and I can actually feel that it's not cured yet. There's actually still a whole lot of tack on that, so it's still not completely dry yet. So it only gets stronger over time. Next is the Monosil P, the newer ones to the market. And I know these are a little bit slower drying time, so these will probably come up a little bit easier than some of the other ones. You can see this was actually a very dirty area here, but overall very good. Still a little bit tacky, so it's probably, if we gave it a little bit longer it'd dry, but definitely still very, very strong overall. And the glue hasn't necessarily separated, it's just taken it off the concrete. But you can actually see that this is a very dirty area of the concrete, so to be fair, this probably hasn't been given the best chance, and it's still held up very strong, and it takes me smashing a crowbar underneath this to actually remove it. So still very, very strong, and that one is going to be even harder to take up. So again, good coverage though, and still very, very strong. Move on to the last one, the Zeromono. And we'll probably find that, as we learned earlier, the Monosil is generally not as strong as the Zeromono. So the Zeromono I would expect is probably going to be a bit harder. Again, it's been quite dirty here, so we'll see. Oh, definitely a lot harder to get this one up. There we go. So as we would expected, a lot harder to get up than the Monosil P, but both still very strong. Wow, this one's quite good. And then you can see there, again, good coverage and still very strong overall. Again, it takes a crowbar to pull this stuff up. So overall we can see, again, this is only a 24-hour test. We could also probably redo the test and put water on these to see how strong they are with water. But if you're getting a lot of water in the floor, you've probably got other problems on your hand. But overall we can see that all of them definitely work. But what we do see is that some of them are a bit stronger than others in that shorter time frame of 24 hours. But the most important thing is all of them do stick. Pardon the pun, but all of them do stick. They are all very good, and you're going to be able to rely on all of these ones. Again, it's just going to come down to the differences of what you prefer in terms of drying time and adjustment levels. But it did look like probably the stronger ones quicker are generally the ones that dry quicker naturally. But as you saw across all of them, they all had a bit of flex to them, which is why the glue didn't actually shatter as such or crack. It slowly tore off, and that's the importance with all these adhesives. It needs to have some sort of flexibility, so when the floors are moving and contracting and expanding as they would normally, that it will move with the adhesion. If the adhesive's too strong and too rigid, it'll just crack and then the floor will give way. You can see that these took a lot of force to get all these up, and this is only 24 hours. It's only going to get stronger in the next couple of days. Alright, so that concludes our third Thursday training, episode 10 of adhesives. Excuse us that we're all a little bit sweaty. As you can see, it was very hard to get a lot of these adhesives up or to break them. So the most important thing I guess we've learned definitely today is that all of these adhesives do work, which is why we stock all of these particular products. They're all products that you can definitely rely on, but definitely, as you can see, they've all got differences that would suit some jobs and some installers differently. So again, if you need any more clarification on these, be sure to give us a call, but I hope this helps you select the right adhesive for the right job. Be sure to subscribe while you're here so you can make sure you see all of our upcoming videos. Next month for our episode 11 for third Thursday training, we're going to be doing wire brushing. So we're going to be showing you live how to wire brush timber floors so you can get that beautiful scraped or hand scraped look throughout the floor. It's going to be quite an exciting one, so make sure you tune in for that one. Thank you again for Brandon for helping me out, and we'll make sure we see you guys next time. Be sure to subscribe. All around. It's right, we can cut those together.
But isn't it one's the worst?
Oh. Okay, go again.
Let me go.
Sorry.
Okay, so
Mapei Ultrabond E-Coat and the S. Thanks, truck. Cecil. Ah, shit.
Secret.
Oh my god, as expected, the Sika is the hardest to get up.
Come on.
Holy moly. Oh, I think we'll come back to this later. Wow. Don't make a mistake with Sika. You're never going to be able to pull it off. Or either how to give a hand scraped or a wire brush effect on. Bloody hell. I just totally lost my train of thought.